Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Star Ocean: The Second Story. I have to start off today with an apology. An apology to Claude, because we've been kind of putting him by the wayside for the last little bit. And honestly, that's kind of what the story does with him, until his whole story arc kind of just comes bubbling back up. So I really wanted to start today with the private actions that we haven't gotten to yet, because they really help push this part of the story forward in terms of Claude and his character and his current situation, which is, he is, well, out of place. We'll also get to see a whole bunch of private actions that really show that even though you want to see everything that the game has to offer, not every one of those private actions is going to give a good reward. For instance, this one where we can choose to eavesdrop on Rena and Celine, or choose not to. And the best option that you have is don't do that. But when you do, Celine can absolutely read Claude like a book. And to really put it out there, I honestly really like. And again, this is something that people can miss. Claude is, for all we know at this point, tremendously inexperienced. Put into a situation that is way above what he could possibly do. And, just has to deal with it. Does that inspire a lot of confidence? No. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation until he can ultimately prove himself. It makes the whole thing with Diaz and the Mars story hit harder when you actually see private actions like this. Because chances are, sometimes you can just experience the Diaz storyline in Mars and just kind of feel like you're missing something when Claude kind of feels like he doesn't need Diaz because he's kind of putting it out there. But it's the feeling of inadequacy that also comes from it. And it's really going like, Claude is very aware of his own personal abilities. And when he sees people who are perfectly capable in their own way of being able to handle problems there, what is Claude to do? How does he fit into all of this? He really doesn't have a place to fit in yet. That's ultimately taken away from him. Yeah, this private action is just a lose-lose situation no matter how you push it. Either you can show Claude as someone who wants to be more forward-facing, and that kind of blows up in his face, or you can turn back and actually show a little bit more politeness, and that is also thrown back in his face. You can't win them all. What, Claude? What indeed. There's a lot of these shall we say, stinker private actions that start at the very beginning of the game, because that's when the friendship values and the relationship values are at its lowest. So if you're able to manipulate that, you even get this really rough private action of Claude and Rena in the church. The first opportunity to really talk about something more romantic with just the two of them, because if you're going by tropes, especially with whatever your knowledge is, hey, Claude and Rena might get together, but based on this private action, you can absolutely sabotage that. Again, no good options here. The safest option is, oh yeah, you are a girl, completely, yep, that is completely ignorant. Dig the grave, dig the grave, dig. Want to see it get worse? No, because Claude already put himself into the friend zone. Himself, you. Yeah. This one's the worst one, though. I think she has every right to get worked up about it. Every single right. So maybe we can get into her good graces again? There's a lot of private actions that happen in this store. So, you know, the not jam salesman, because salesperson, because, yeah, that's Yuki. Yeah, she gets a lot of business. And ultimately, you get a bunch of items for rather cheap. And we'll see in the near future, also for free. Does it mean that the accessories are really good in the long term? No. But at least it's something for the very beginning of the game. And I know for some people, yeah, doing that kind of action and then forcing the grace upon them is not a good move either. And there's also a lot more talk than you would expect of just Rena's birthday. The birthstone being emerald in May. So we do get the leaf pendant out of it. The leaf pendant is more of a sentimental accessory. Increases luck by 10 points. That's about it. And pretty soon we'll come across another accessory that's actually better than the leaf pendant. So again, sentimental, not so much for practicality. But getting back on Claude's characterization. Another private action that happens in Salva has to do with this little girl. The Warrior of Light story kind of peters out and really doesn't carry forward as we go through the game. But the entire idea of it does kind of continue in terms of just like who Claude is as a person and who he can become. In some cases, we can say it's like, yeah, and totally go the conceited way. But that isn't really Claude's character at this point. He's not going to play hero unless he's forced to. And even though what that little girl just said, there's no like big monster to even fight there. So really, it's just kind of a promise there to just keep. Now, of course, we could also take the honest approach. What do I mean by honest, though? You ever get those moments where you're just talking to yourself, trying to give yourself advice, and you end up sounding wiser to yourself than you expected to? Because this is Claude's little moment of that. And with this introspection, you even get a reward out of it. It's a harmonica, but it's a reward nonetheless. To be honest, the harmonica isn't really a valuable reward, but are you really considering any reward to be valuable in terms of like selling it off? It also mentions that Germany exists, so the people in Expel, like it's a break in immersion. Germany doesn't exist in Expel, but you know. Yeah, the harmonica you can just sell for 75. Terrible warrior behavior at this point, though. And kind of to be honestly truthful, I can see a bunch of people taking the just no option right off the bat. And kind of unfortunate that when you think about where a private action could go based on just a single line of text, which is a problem throughout any dialogue, throughout any RPG that you possibly play that has a system like this, well then all of a sudden you become disappointed and it's like, oh, this was not how I expected it to go. It's also at this point in the story, the only reason why we're ever going back to Arlia is because of private actions. So for instance, on Rena's perspective, we got Ashton recently, and guess what? Ashton has some private actions in Arlia. And whenever we get new people to join us, we're gonna head back to Arlia. It won't be completely gone. It just won't be story relevant. Again, Celine being blunt. Obviously, the answer's obvious of what you should take. Because she's pretty much just offering it to us, even though the context behind the gift is a little bit, suspect. Celine knows more than she is letting on. But yeah, we can of course accept the offer. Based on everything that's being said about Claude from Celine, a younger brother that had some relationship issues to figure out there. The thing that we just got from her, though, is something we're not going to be seeing the identification of for quite some time, because whenever we pick up an item that has a question mark around it, it just gives the general idea of what it is, it's unidentified. So until we can identify it, we can't use it yet. So now, let's head back to Hurley and do Claude's perspective, which is just kind of wander around town. And when we're done with that, get on a boat. Literally. And it's cheaper from his perspective because there's only 3 party members, and in order to get passage for all of them, it is 30 full each. Did it. It took long enough, but we're finally going on to the second continent. We're not going to go too far into the second continent, though, because, hey, we got a new town to explore. Hilton, as it almost says on the sign. I always kind of wonder what kind of gibberish writing they kind of work with there, but the Hilton sign is the closest to resembling, well, at least English characters, which I think is not supposed to be intended since it was in Japanese there. Here we can pick up some new skills, specifically for technique and combat. However, I gotta watch my money on this perspective because I haven't done much with Claude, Rena, and Celine here. No Ashton on this side. So guess what? They're also tremendously underleveled. This is almost the feeling of, hey, once I step out into the continent, get ready to die. Acknowledge animal training is really the big one that we're probably going to be seeing soon once we get rolling on the story once again, at least dungeon-wise. But yes, at this point, since we're on the continent, you would hear about the Liqueur Tournament of Arms in Cross from a couple people, but here you're going to hear about it a lot. Especially since Diaz is going to be heading that direction as well. Now, Hilton is another town that is pretty much just kind of an afterthought for regularly playing the game, because it's just the port. You're able to come in, look at all the areas there if you want. It's small. But honestly, I kind of like it. Especially since they have root beer, and just because it's fun that way, and it's a good MP restoring item. Might as well pick one up. Just another boy. Why can't you be special, boy? There's also some interesting accents that are around Hilton. Very, very, very high quality. Nothing specifically that we can really spend our money on, although he does sell whips. Don't have anybody who can use a whip yet. We can get some more armor, but again, my amount of money is very, very low. I'm going to be mindful of my money for right now. It's actually better in order to get some blackberries. What I should invest in. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I connect with this town similar to the first game when you get to the second continent and you're in that town there. That I keep coming back to it, especially for Rosso's Tool Shop. Just because it has a huge amount of things here. Speaking of which, hey, there's a wonderful accent for you. Guess where it comes from? For the music store. Not so much for the instruments here, but probably you might come back here for the conductor's batons, if anything. The good instrument, it's like a piece of you. I'm awaiting you come back, eh? Okay. I also hate that this place is called the Hilton, because then you come into the hotel, and I'm going like, oh, it kind of feels like a Hilton. Even the symbol on the floor. Ugh. But something that is very missable, that you can do either on Claude or Rena's perspective, is stay at the inn. There is a scene. It almost feels like a scene that you would get at a bunch of different inns. If you stayed at the inn, something else would come up. But no. Hilton is just kind of one of a kind this way. I'd be more surprised if the worry did go away. It's a good scene. It's small, it's simple, music doesn't get in the way of it at all, just silent. Perfectly fine. So let's mess around with it a little bit. Because we might be on the Liqueur continent getting our first view of new lands, but it's time for some more private actions. We're not done with Claude just yet, because there are some unfortunate private actions that kind of come from this. For instance, what if we kept the ability to steal and pickpocket, and pickpocket from the sad little boy who just said his father died? Yes, we can steal from him. And then he runs automatically away. This private action is weird out of all of them because it feels so out of place. Like, the only prerequisite is that you have to have the pickpocketing ability. That's it. So we can do one of two things. Return the photo that was on the rocket pendant, or just say no. I don't want to talk to that kid. And it's like, okay, if it's no, that means we keep it, right? Nope. Just throw away what we stole from a kid. Like, I'm kind of baffled that way. And no matter what, it doesn't matter if you keep it or return the photo and say the option of return the photo. The rocket pendant isn't even an item you're able to look at. It is specifically for the private action. You don't get anything out of it. It's just so weirdly self-contained and isolated as a private action. But again, it's less so for practical purposes, and it's more for bringing out some sort of character with Claude. And this is a private action to kind of just remind you that, yeah, Claude doesn't have a good relationship with Ronix, his dad, being in the shadow of a very successful person. So it's almost like a crisis that Claude has there. Just weirdly, if this was going to work, it needed to be in more places and not as stilted and spread out and isolated. Kind of annoying there. The next time we're going to talk about like Claude and Ronix together is going to be not for a very long time. So let's get more into hijinks here with Celine. She's bringing up that. Again, this is another private action which you don't get to win. This is just lose-lose. Depends on how much you want to lose. Yeah, so being truthful, but, you know, we've seen enough private actions at this point. You know, Claude is just going to keep going with it. You're in it. You're energetic, Celine, just like Rena is. Unfortunately, they don't really have a crying pose for Celine to do, so they just kind of double down on the laughing one. Either that or she's laughing through the tears as she gets angry, justifiably. So it makes you almost feel like if you do it again, then picking the other option might be the best thing to do. I'm just gonna head on out here and go like, hey Rena, how's it going? You all good? Yeah, sure. That's what I've been doing. I'm not trying to get injured. Again, no winning. You're just going to be a good boy and really hope you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time again. Hilton. What a troublesome place for private actions, isn't it? From here, we head to Liqueur Castle. But before that, hey, we do have Ashton. I did remember him. Because there's some things we get to learn about him through heading back to Arlia to start off with. And I would just say Ashton, but really the private action is more with the three of them. Fortunately for Ashton, if Gyaran and Ururin are upset, he gets to be the mediator. They want to look cool. I love that they're only asking for one helmet, too. The thing is like, no, we both want helmets. And yeah, that is the amount that they cost. But not exactly. Whenever you do this private action, it's going to cost 75% of the money you're carrying. What? Oh, no. We don't get to take responsibility anymore for this. We were past that arc. But I'm in the mood to make some dragons happy. Yeah. It's all good. We get the salamander helmet for that. The salamander helmet is an accessory for Ashton. And it's not all that great. It just boosts some stats a tiny, tiny bit. It would have been awesome if an accessory like this would really push that. It's like, hey, we could get like a change in appearance for them, just like a tiny bit. I know that would take a whole lot of extra work because then all of a sudden Ashton would have an additional sprite sheet for battle where Gyoro and Urun have armor on their heads. So I guess I get why they didn't do it. But then again, if you know anything about Star Ocean and Ashton specifically, the amount of redesigns and extra things that Ashton, and Gyoro, and Urun got over the years, let's just say there's a lot. He's a popular character. We also get a little peek of one of his other things that are really enjoyable for him, like a barrel. It's not the last time we'll see a barrel and Ashton together. But what did I say? We also have more with this jewelry seller, and not just with Rena, it's going to be also with Celine and Ashton. This private action's honestly really good. Not so much for the conversation, but more for the item you can potentially get from it. There really is no downside to doing it either. After all of the negatives that we've seen today, it's good to end on a positive, really. Or, you can just say no to the private action entirely and just move on. It's honestly the worst option you could take. I guess that's what happens when you have two dragons attached to you now. You get the horde fever. Claude being a regular old Joe unless you know the exact option to take. But Celine and Ashton can read Rena very easily. What's this about pocket money? I thought we were pooling all of our finances together here. So we can choose sapphire, emerald, or diamond. Each of them will give a different accessory that we can equip. Unfortunately, we can only get one. So we're going to start with obviously the worst one out of the three, the sapphire. Like, Rena already has enough blue on her. I don't think having more blue really is going to fit there. We need something that's going to strike out. The Aqua Ring. Arguably the worst accessory you can get from this private action because the Aqua Ring only controls the amount of water damage. Or controls the amount of, water damage you actually get too. While taking away fire damage as well. You get hit more with fire. That's all it does, unfortunately. So it's not the best option in order to take out. Of course, we can get another thing that is based on the emerald. Celine finds a better pick, though, than Claude does with the leaf pendant. Will Ashton ever receive a gift from Celine? No, he won't. But what we get for the emerald is, unfortunately, just another emerald ring. It's nice to have a second one if you've been to the Mountain Palace. But since I've already been and already have one, it's not the best option to get. I would arguably say that the diamond actually has its uses. Honestly, I'm going through my head right now. I'm going like, well, maybe this one is actually like the second best. But it is the most unique out of the three. Because with the emerald ring, we will be getting an upgrade a little while later, and also the management of MP becomes a lot easier as the game goes on, which means that the emerald ring kind of loses use as we go. I'm just arguing with myself. Don't mind me. So with the diamond, we get the first earring. A pretty fair accessory for early stages of the game. It prevents rear attacks, so you'll never get back attacks. And it's also twice as effective in giving you luck than the leaf pendant. We hopefully will see some of these effects later on, but first, we have some exploration in the Liqueur continent to do. See you next time, everyone.